Today, everybody's here to learn about one-to-one rule. The FCC's new rule, which will be effective on January 27th, potentially. We're not sure. Who knows what's going to happen after today? So, so let me introduce myself and then our special guest, R.E.A.C.H, Troutman, and then we'll dive into like all the rule, everything you need to know about FCC new one-to-one rule. The latest update, and finally how to solve this problem with Seasalt.ai. So don't worry if you're not familiar yet. We will get into the detail of the policy in this slide. First of all, this is not legal advice. We have a lawyer here. If you want legal advice, please talk to R.E.A.C.H Troutman, who is an expert in TCPA, or your local legal counsel. I try my best to do as much as research as can, and we at Seasalt.ai are constantly tuning our product to and our solution to be compliant, so everybody can be up to date and avoid the fines. But this is, after all, not legal advice. So today's agenda will be, first, I'm going to introduce you about the FCC one rule. I added the question mark this morning because we're not sure if it's going to be effective on January 27th. But the original plan, this has been playing out for over a year until now. But the original plan is this new rule will be effective on January 27th. After that, if you violate a one-to-one rule, you will potentially get fined. Secondly, we will hear some insights and update from Mr. Troutman, who's joining us here today from Irvine. And finally, I'll tell you about all actions you need to take to be compliant. Today's speaker, first, my name is Amy Chen. I'm head of growth at Seasalt.ai, and I am also leading the Agent Lead Shield program at Seasalt.ai, where we help businesses, agency owner, individual agent, whoever you might be, to become compliant with FCC rule, especially one-to-one rule. This will include your SMS messaging, your voice call automation, and your AI call automation. We have the entire solution around that, and also compliance assistance around that. Secondly, we're also introducing R.E.A.C.H Troutman, who I think most of the crowd is familiar with him. He's been advocating and educating everybody about this new rule for the past year or more. He is an expert in TCPA. He calls himself the czar of TCPA. And ever since I started to learn about this topic, all roads leads to Troutman. And he runs this amazing website called TCPAWorld.com. You all should subscribe to stay up to date. Let's talk about takeaway first. Today's takeaway is, first, you need to definitely, as a business owner or agent, whoever, if you do any kind of business using communication, you need to stay up to date with this new rule. Otherwise, you can potentially get fined. Second, you need a good lawyer. You need a legal counsel to talk to and make sure you're compliant. Third, you need a good technical partner. Seasalt.ai is a potential solution. But try to educate and facilitate everything that's changing in the landscape. So yeah, if you before we dive into the topic, you feel free to scan the QR code, and then it will open up an interest form. If you want to consult with us and then learn about everything we're doing to help everybody get compliant, you are feel free to fill out the form today. At Seasalt.ai, we specialize in SMS, voice call, web chat, WhatsApp, Instagram, Meta Messenger. Basically, we do everything related to communication channel, whether it's text or call. our mission is to connect businesses to customers 24/7 text or call. And we probably should add one more to our mission, which is to do that compliantly. And feel free to fill out the form. I'm gonna stay here for 10 more seconds so you can scan the QR code. Okay.
Do you have the link as well? If you just
yeah, I have the link. Check
post
the
it in
chat.
chat.
I send it to you. I send it to you. Yeah. Check your Google chat. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's start. What is the one-to-one consent rule? First of all, as a business owner, how do you acquire leads nowadays? Lead generation is by far the single most important thing people operate business they need to solve. I talked to a lot of small and medium-sized business owner, and all the time, every conversation end up with lead generation. So the question end up being, how do you acquire leads? How do you manage your pipeline? How do you manage your funnel? And that is a very difficult task right now, because everybody is trying to figure out how to communicate to the customer in a friendly way, and how to use AI to automate their funnel efficiently without losing that customer connection, that human to human connection. So as a business owner, this is the biggest question right now to solve. But on the other side, as a consumer, we are a business owner, but at the same time, we're a consumer as well. We are tired of all the spam calls. I recently submitted a request on Bankrate, and immediately I get 10 and 20 phone calls that morning. And consecutively, 2 weeks after that submission, I get a lot of calls. Why is that so?
Hello.
Yeah, any question? Oh, okay. Never mind. So as a consumer, I also wanna enjoy a smooth lead generation process. I'm happy to be in the pipeline, but I want the experience to be great. So today we're gonna dive into how the new rule will play out, and then we'll discuss more around that. The current lead generation landscape is honestly messy. I want to shout out to one person in particular who introduced me to all this wild stuff about TCPA and FCC rule. He's like my mentor in the insurance world. Rob, I think Rob Oxenford is also here today. He taught me about TCPA one-to-one rule, and then also the messiness of the current lead generation landscape. First of all, you are in the lead generation world, you are sold as a lead. So your contact information can be sold multiple times to different, for example, if you're interested in health insurance, your contact can be sold to multiple insurance agents, and then they will potentially call you and try to help you with your health insurance shopping. Multiple lead insurance, multiple lead sale can lead to very aggressive competition among businesses. From the consumer, it's chaotic. It's very hard to figure out who to talk to. But also from the agency side, the businesses are competing against each other to win one customer, which is very difficult and tiring, and it's not efficient. It's very hard to build authentic relationship that way. Second, we have a lot of spam calls now because of these lead generation pipeline being so messy. After you submit an interest form, you might get a lot of SMS messages and then a lot of phone calls, and sometimes they repeat. They forgot to, maybe one business forgot to label a contact as contacted, and then you get multiple phone calls from the same vendor. And finally, this is hurting the businesses, because low quality leads. It's not because they don't have the buying intent. It's because after being bombarded by so many marketing calls and texts, they are fatigued. The customers from high quality leads, they change to low quality leads. So the new FCC solution is trying to make this whole ecosystem more transparent and respectful. But the new rule also has its downside, which we'll get to later. Understanding the one-to-one consent rule. So what is it really? The new rule require each businesses to obtain prior written consent from individual to the business before contacting them using regulated technologies for marketing purposes. I will get into what exactly are the regulated technologies later, but on high level, you as a business need to obtain and also maintain that written consent from each individual. And this will lead to a lot of potential issues. For example, in your CRM, you may have already 2,000 contacts, and now you don't have the consent to contact them under this new one-to-one rule using regulated technologies. So how are you going to deal with all these contacts? You bought these leads, are they still useful anymore? These are all questions kind of flying up in the air. So we need to solve them. So this is more specifically talking about what businesses are impacted. If you're a if you're a lead buyer, for example, if you're an agent, you're a real estate agent or insurance agent, or you are just a business who buys leads online, you are impacted. You need to review whether your lead generation company, the source of your leads, are compliant before using them. Second, if you are generating your own leads, for example, you have a lead pipeline and then you run SEO, PPC, Google Ads, generate your own leads, you need to update your consent message to stay compliant. And on the back end, you need to manage all your contact efficiently to stay compliant. So those are the two most important category. And third, any company, and I cannot think of any company that's not doing this, but any company using automated technologies to collect phone number need to be reviewing their pipeline, so they are to ensure they stay compliant. If you go to a website, you might see a web form where you fill out a form to express interest that you might need to get consent that way if you do any of the automated technology down the road. And if you collect a lot of if you collect phone number using emails and then other kind of lead generation pipeline, you might need to get into the detail and actually review step by step whether you are compliant or not. So try to make this as simple as possible. I think any business that collects or stores customer phone numbers is relevant. And if that's you, let me keep going and tell you more about it. Yeah. Why the urgency? First of all, the deadline is coming up. It should be in 6 days, but Eric probably will get into detail about whether that's actually coming or not. We're not sure yet at the moment. But for now, the deadline is January 27th. After January 27th, the new FCC rule compliant, you need to be compliant on your website and all your lead generation pipeline. Immediate action required, otherwise you're kind of risking yourself being fined. The fine is $500 to $2,000 per text or call violation. I was very surprised when I hear about this. It's per text or call violation. It's not like you get caught once and then you get fined $500, like crossing the red line, but it's counted by text or call. So it adds up very, very quickly. And how it's gonna affect lead generation practice. First, you should not be buying leads without one-to-one consent. Second, you should not be selling leads without one-to-one consent. And third, you should maintain the record so that when FCC come after you or other people come after you, you can show them, hey, I have the consent for my customers all in one place. Funny story is, it's not funny, it's kind of sad. I was calling a lead generation company for a partnership. And then they told me they are closing up because of this new rule. They cannot afford to be in the business anymore because of this new rule. Is too strict, and they can no longer generate leads for customers efficiently. So they're closing down. So this is affecting a lot of people. I'm sure in the audience, a lot of people have been working tirelessly in the last year to prepare, but things are still changing. So up until now, I want to try to engage you guys. If there's one takeaway, it would be how much would you get fined for each text or call violation? Any taker on this quiz? How much?
500 to $1,500.
Very close. 500 to 2,000. So you can potentially get fined even more.
Not good.
2,000. Not bad. Not bad. So our take on one-to-one consent rule, short term, it imposes a lot of challenges on all of us. We need to rethink how we generate leads, how we manage our pipelines. If you are heavily reliant on buying leads from outside vendors, you need to rethink, should I be buying for these vendors, or should I be generating my own leads from now on? Take this as an opportunity to change my marketing pipeline, right? And then short term, you're just gonna create a lot of chaos for small businesses and a lot of challenges, because we've spent so much time setting up our stuff, our website, our call automation, our text automation, but now that it's all changing, I need to scrub my entire CRM to see who I can call, who I cannot call. This is very challenging. For short, but I'm saying this is short term. For long term, it might impose some advantages, because right now, as a consumer, I'm tired of all the calls. I want to be contacted by quality vendors. So in the long term, if all the lead company can just sell me leads that or I'll be generating leads with higher quality, the consumer may be contacted by me and one other vendor, and he can compare and contrast. That would be a much healthier landscape and much healthier customer experience. So I am pretty optimistic about this new rule. But we want to be a part of the journey and help you fix all the pipeline, like stay compliant, and then and open up the new chapter for your lead generation process. Yeah. So let me touch a little bit on the regulated technology. If you're still not sure whether you will be your business will be relevant, if you use any of these technologies, your business is relevant. Right now, nowadays, a lot of CRM system have automated tools where you can trigger automatic SMS text, recorded voice call, or with a lot of more legacy software, they have interactive voice response, or IVR. That is the technology where when you call, it asks you to press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish, things like that. Those are all regulated technologies. And another popular one is voice drop. If you automatically leave voicemail to your customer's phone, that is relevant as well. It's regulated technology. And finally, the most popular new tool is AI voice call. Seasalt.ai does this as well. So we are committed to help our customer get that consent before they get called. if you do use AI voice code, that is regulated as well. And in the one-to-one consent message, you have to be very explicit about all these technologies used. I am a little bit behind, a little bit running over on time. I want to make sure Mr. Troutman have time to address everybody about the new rule and the upcoming changes. So I'll be very quick starting now, and I'll be sharing these slides later. Step to achieve compliance. First, you need to learn. Like today, joining this webinar is a good step to start. I've seen a lot of great YouTubers like Cody Askins, a big YouTuber for insurance agents, and lab code agents. He's more on the real estate side of things. They are all talking about this new rule, TCPA compliance one-to-one. People are trying to stay up to date, so feel free to, I think the best way to stay up to date is to follow TCPAWorld and also Seasalt.ai. We are committed to share with you the latest information about everything TCPA, and also updating our solution to help you with that. How to obtain the one-to-one consent message. Specifically, you need a specific language. I will show you later how long the language will look like, but you need that. You need that to be compliant. Second, you need to list all the service provider. If you are a lead generation company, you need to have explicit checkboxes for all the company providers that all the vendors you're gonna sell the lead to. Third is no pre-check boxes. Before, a lot of the consent messages are hiding behind the privacy hyperlink. Now you need to provide that consent explicitly on the form. And fourth, you need to maintain a record. Yeah. And I've been digging into this, and the best resource I found is actually from Mr. Troutman. His Troutman 15. These are all the rules you need to follow to write your consent message. If you feel overwhelmed, you can take some time to read this article, or we at Seasalt.ai are ready to help you with all the consent messages. Okay. And finally, a note on DNC, do not contact. Do not contact is still a separate compliance rule you need to follow. This is separate from TCPA one-to-one consent. If you want to call anyone, make sure you are not calling someone from the DNC list. First, you need to maintain your internal DNC list. Second, check your list against the national DNC registry. And there are also 11 states in the country that maintain their own DNC list. So make sure you don't call anyone from list 3 list as well. That is a lot of information. This is a very big topic, so I try to give you everything I know at the moment. But for now, let's welcome Mr. Troutman, and then Eric will tell us about his take on the everything TCPA so far.
Well, thank you, Amy. And
That's a lot. Sorry.
I got a bunch of notes and emails. So usually, Amy, when I join a webinar, I'm the one giving the explanation of the one-to-one rule. I think that's probably what people were expecting, including me. Nonetheless, this was fun. It was actually useful to hear from you. And I have to say, I was listening carefully, and quite a bit of what you said was dead on. And so I think that was useful. So thank you for that. Look, I'll just level set for everybody. You guys, hopefully everybody that follows me, you already know about the one-to-one rule, right? We know currently people use hyperlinks. People will get a lead from a consumer who will fill out a web form, and there'll be thousands of marketing partners. And today that's probably okay. Actually, probably because the courts are pushing back on even some of the basic lead gen shall we say, philosophy in terms of how you bring people into the funnel. Many of the current formats are being really heavily scrutinized. And of course, very famously, even lowermybills.com was recently found to not be an enforceable web flow, even though that's used thousands of times a day. So even today, even without one-to-one, we know that there are, there's headwinds for the lead generation community. But come January 27th, asterisk, probably we'll get there. We know there's going to be a massive change. Now the requirements of 47 CFR 64-1200 F9, that's your definition of express written consent, it's going to be modified. And now the consumer has to select each individual company identified one at a time. Now, of course, Amy's already told you, we've got the Troutman Amin 15, totally free, completely prepared template that my law firm put out there that you guys can use. It's been viewed like 5,000 times in the last 2 weeks. So people are plainly, they're looking at this, they're using this as their template to try to bring, the one-to-one disclosures to life. I heavily encourage you folks to look at this, and Amy's flashed up on the screen. Again, you go to TCPAWorld.com or just search Troutman Amin 15. You'll get all those pointers right there for you to consider. Now, the one-to-one rule was passed over a year ago. It was set to become the law here following being, sorry, I got some people outside my door, following being published in the Federal Register. It was set to become law on January 27th. And on that date, as you heard Amy correctly say, all of your previous leads, everything in your pipeline, everything in your funnel, everything in your CRM, those leads are done. They're toast. They've expired. And now in order for you to contact those leads, you can't use regulated technology anymore. You have to be able to utilize manual calling, okay? And by manual, I mean anything that's not an ATDS, kind of complex. Amy gave you some really high-level pointers on that. I've got a lot more information. TCPAWorld can help you out. The bottom line is, if you're going to use regulated technology, any form of automation, you're not going to be able to call on those old leads anymore, okay? So now you've got to really be focused on manual. And of course, if you want to use that regulated technology, which of course, if you're going to be calling at scale, you want to do that. Now you've got to get the one-to-one consent, which you've kind of laid out. Now, all of that was set to happen on January 27th. A couple of things have happened since. First, I think rather famously, an organization called the Insurance Marketing Coalition, IMC, has taken a petition to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal challenging under something called the Hobbs Act, the implementation of the one-to-one rule. The oral argument was held on that challenge in December. And I got to tell you, the judges assigned to that panel, there's 3 Trump judges that were assigned to that panel, they did seem pretty skeptical of the rule. And they particularly were focused on something called the consumer's right to consent, which is not something really anyone's ever thought about or talked about before. It wasn't something that was briefed in the petitions. It was something that the judges seemed very interested in when you're looking at how a federal agency implements something in a statute. And here they were very focused on what could the FCC do to limit the scope of a consumer's right to consent. So it looked like there might be some headwinds for the FCC. However, here we are 6 days away from implementation date, and no stay has been entered by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And it's looking very unlikely at this point that they're going to stay the ruling. So the legal challenge seemed really to not be going anywhere, even though there was some initially maybe some like excitement that maybe based upon some of the remarks of the judges at the oral argument that maybe this thing might get stayed. The proof is in the pudding, and there's been no ruling from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal. So it looked like, hey, look, January 27th, we're right back to implementation, except yesterday, that now President Trump, of course, became the president. He was sworn in. And amongst the first things he did was he signed a very interesting executive order that was issued to all executive agencies saying, essentially, if you have a ruling that you're working on that has not yet become effective, you cannot move forward with it until it is reviewed by someone in his administration. Now, that only applies to rulings that were not already published in the Federal Registrar that were set to become law on an effective date. The one-to-one rule, as I already told you, was published in the Federal Registrar, and so therefore is already set to become effective. Now, there's a different provision in Trump's order, which is fascinating, that in those instances where it's already been published in the Federal Registrar and there is an effective date, but that effective date has not yet come to pass, which is exactly the one-to-one scenario, there the executive agency is ordered to consider staying the implementation date for 60 days. Consider. So it's not required, but they're asked to consider it. So, of course, Eric Troutman, you guys know me. I'm also the president of an organization called R.E.A.H, that's Responsible Enterprises Against Consumer Harassment. R.E.A.H is a trade organization in the lead generation community designed to set standards for lead generators and stop some of these abusive practices that Amy was correctly telling you about, how lead generators were doing some kind of nasty things back in the day. Most of that's been cleaned up now, or at least we're moving toward cleaning that up. And R.E.A.H is, of course, driving that forward. But R.E.A.H also advocates for the good players in the industry. And R.E.A.H just last night, moving very quickly to try to give us as much time as we possibly can, filed an emergency petition with the FCC, asking it in light of Trump's order to, in fact, consider staying the implementation date for 60 days as consistent with that order. Now, there's some difficulties here, I'll be honest with you. And, we're not putting this in writing, but those of you that, came in and are listening and stuck around for 25 minutes of Amy talking before I got to talk, I want you to hear this from me. The issue is that the FCC is probably not an executive agency. Now, that issue has never been tested. And courts will commonly refer to them as an independent agency, sometimes refer to them as a legislative agency, but at least when they're doing enforcement actions, they are referred to as an executive agency. So it's unclear, frankly, to me, and if it's unclear to me, it's really unclear to everybody, whether or not the executive order applies to the FCC or not. What we do know is that the FCC already has vested authority to reconsider any of its orders and pause any of its orders if it so chooses. So leveraging this executive order that may or may not be binding on the commission, regardless, it gives the commission the opportunity to consider staying it anew. Whether or not they have to under the executive order is a different issue, but they are empowered to do so regardless. So we're going to ask them to do that. Now, the other issue is that right now the commission is not at full strength. There's only 4 members of the FCC. Jessica Rosenworcel, the former chairwoman, stepped down yesterday. So right now we've got Starks, we've got Carr. Starks is a Democrat. Carr is your new chairman as a Republican. We've got Gomez, she's a Democrat, and we've got Symington, he's a Republican. Okay, so we've got 4 commissioners over there. In order for the stay to be put into effect, at least 3 of the 4 will probably have to grant it, or they'd have to defer to the Bureau and have the Bureau issue a Bureau-level determination staying the case, staying the implementation of the order, which they might do. But as you can tell, even though we've got this executive order, when you combine the fact that the FCC may or may not be an executive agency with the fact that we're not at full strength, and we've got a 2-2 split between Republicans and Democrats, it is not a given that this emergency petition by R.E.A.H is going to be filed. It's going to be granted. So please understand that although R.E.A.H has come forward, we've asked for this consideration, we've asked for this 60-day stay, and I am knocking on wood and doing what I can, you guys know what I mean, to try to make this get done. I cannot guarantee it, right? So everybody has to, at least at this moment, continue to treat this as if come January 27th, just next week, we are going to be going live with one-to-one. Obviously on TCPAWorld.com, the second we hear from the petition, the second we know what's going on with the commission, we're going to let you know. If anything breaks on the 11th Circuit Appeal on the IMC, we're going to let you know right away. Kind of backing up, I will tell you, those of you that attended Lead Generation World, we had an after dark event, compliance event, where we actually put up on the screen, I think we put up like 10 different versions of one-to-one concepts that companies are circulating. And I got to tell you, of the 10 we put up there, probably only 2 passed muster. So if you are a lead buyer, please keep in mind, hopefully you're already vetting these things out. But if you're not, please keep in mind that just because somebody tells you, yeah, we're compliant with the one-to-one, that does not make it so, because I am looking at draft provisions that people are drafting up and they are not close, right? The Troutman mean 15 should be your touchstone. Remember, if you're a lead buyer, the risk is on you, okay? The lead sellers, this is the perverse incentives we've always had in this industry, is the lead sellers are the ones who get everyone in trouble. Love you all, but you do, right? You get everyone in trouble, and yet the risk is actually not on the sellers, it's on the buyers. Now, there's always going to be indemnity that's going to flow, and sellers are going to have to answer for what they've done to the buyers, but really the buyers, the responsibility is on their shoulders, the accountability is on their shoulders, and so you guys really need to be paying incredibly close attention right now, making sure that all 15 of those requirements, the Troutman mean 15, are being followed, and making sure that these layouts are not tricking consumers, right? As I've already told you, even today, the courts are really taking a very incredibly skeptical look right now at lead generation. They're really looking very, very tight at these forms, and they're, you know, again, lowermybills.com got thrown out. I mean, what else do you have to say about that, right? That obviously there's headwinds even today, and come January 27th, when this rule becomes effective, it's going to be even more aggressive. All right, there's my overview. I know there's a lot of questions, Amy. It'd be great if we can answer some of the questions that are flowing around out there. I'm not sure if you've seen a couple, but I'm seeing like just stuff popping up all over the place. Of course, also before we do that, if you guys want to ask me questions directly and we don't get a chance to cover it today, you can always email me, troutman@troutmanamin.com. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I don't promise you a quick response, but they go into my little queue and I'll get to them as I work through. Troutman@troutmanamin.com. All right, Amy, what do we got?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. We will get to the Q&A session at the very end. There are a lot of questions in the chat. They are very good questions. I try to answer a few of them, but we'll get to them. Some of them may be directed to Eric. So let me just finish the final part of my presentation. Sort of give you guys assurance that there's a way out and we we can get prepared. Before we get to the final part, I want to tell you about this. Like, anyone can file a complaint. It's not just FCC or class action lawyer who are looking at the different companies and see if they are compliant. My CEO and I dig into this, and we actually found this page where you can file very easily a phone complaint, an SMS complaint through FCC website. So something really you need to be careful about. Of course, today we're hosting a webinar to educate and also to provide you a solution, a way out. We can help you get compliant. We are watching this closely. There are a lot of AI companies out there, and then I've seen none of them talking about this new rule, but they should get compliant with our Lead Shield program. We will help you with call forwarding, SMS, phone calls, auto dialer, all the technologies you're using today. If you want to continue use them and use them in a better way and use them compliantly, we can work with you on a solution. How we're gonna do that? We're gonna set up your pipeline review first. We will work with you and look at your current pipeline and see how we can help you get compliant. As Mr. Troutman just said, if you go out and look at a lot of websites today, they are not compliant, even if they say so. And especially when you buy from the companies, it's hard to say. And at the end of the day, you are the one who need to be responsible for your action, for your communication with customers. So we offer a program called Lead Shield in terms of that. We offer 2-week money back guarantee, and then the setup cost is depends on how large your agency or your company is. And then we offer a retainer program, monthly program to help you stay compliant. If you're interested, we not only help you get compliant, we actually help you with a lot of different channels. Seasalt.ai is a communication company. We help businesses communicate to customer 24/7, text or call. And by text, it's not just SMS. Of course, with TCPA, you need to be compliant with SMS and phone calls. But at the same time, our customers are reaching us through different channels, and we do it all in one. And we offer you a consent message that is ready to go today. This is all compliant with the Troutman 15. Thanks, Eric, for providing the template. And as things develop, we will update the product as things go. If you're interested, this is your opportunity to start rethink how you generate your leads and build up your lead generation. And this is also your opportunity to take a look at all your lead vendors and decide for yourself, hey, is this the vendor I want to continue working with? Are they compliant? Are they matching all the requirement with the new FCC rule, and are they following all the latest development? If that is not the case, you might need to think twice, and then also take a look at your website builder or your technology partners. Are they talking about FCC one-to-one? If they are not, maybe you should be looking for a technology partner that's going to be your ally, and then be responsible about all things legal, right? And finally, today only we offer 20% off on the lead show program by Seasalt.ai. If you fill out the form today, we're gonna do a funnel review with you first, and then it will show you the demo and check out what's your lead generation pipeline today, and then kind of do a review on the compliance level, and also how you want to build it out in the future. Today only, if you sign up using the form, we will get in touch and then work with you on everything TCPA. Yeah. I'm gonna leave the page here for people to scan, but Eric and I can now take questions and then do a little Q&A session right now. Let me see. Should we do a few questions from the chat, and then maybe people can unmute and ask the question directly if they want. Let me see. There are a lot of questions right now. Let me see. Anyone want to raise your hand and then just shout out the question? Because this is the, okay, Jim.
Hey, Eric, when do you think the FCC will respond to the emergency petition?
It's tough to know. Look, truthfully, there's a chance that they don't respond at all. Now, I will tell you, things are working through channels, and so I do expect that there will be a response of some kind. I don't know that, right? This is the thing with the commission, is like you never really know. I would like to think we'll know. If we're going to get an answer, I think we're going to get an answer by the end of the day tomorrow. Would be my anticipation. We don't know that. So, please don't think, oh, tomorrow passed and we didn't get that ruling. But that would be my anticipation. I doubt that they'd wait until, Thursday or Friday, but they might. You can't rule it out. And of course, come Monday, we just have to be ready to go.
Next is One Insurance Agency. Hi, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Okay. Then Laura, do you want to ask your question? Laura C.
Yes, Amy, thank you. My question, Eric, is I don't actually purchase leads except from one vendor, and we've confirmed through them. I've been on another conference with you that they're meeting all the standards. My biggest concern are all the leads that we had from the past. And how do I go about getting them to come back into compliance? Because a large amount of my business is from 6, 12, 18 months down the road.
Yeah. No, it's a challenge. And this is, probably the biggest piece of the ruling from an implementation standpoint, and the biggest challenge that many of my clients have as well. The biggest brands out there, I think you guys know, most of my clients are big lead buyers and brands that make generally millions of calls a month, if not a day. And they're facing the same challenge as the smaller guys. And they're able to solve it using kind of out-of-the-box solutions, things like Safe Select or Drip's Initiate platform, or now Convoso's coming to market with something called Call Catalyst. These are purpose-built platforms that allow you to call at scale, but they've had all the ATDS components stripped out of it so that you can use these things. Otherwise, you've just got to be calling these folks manually, right? Literally just picking up your phone and making outbound calls. That is still legal to make true manual even for marketing purposes, calls to your existing leads, as long as those existing leads are in writing, right, and qualify under the current rules of express written consent. If those are valid express written consent today, you can still call them manually tomorrow, even if they're on the DNC list manually. But what you can't do, as we talked about, is put them on your auto dialers or use AI voice technology or use any kind of pre-recorded calls or IVR or, of course, ringless voicemail. All of those will get you killed. And that is the challenge, right? So you want to still contact these people, but you just can't contact them utilizing that technology anymore come January 27th.
Would it be possible for me to send out a mass email? We use Microsoft Forms a lot. Can I send out a mass email and say, if you want us to continue to contact you, you must select and consent below? And if they do that, how long does that give us to contact them? Is it the 90 days or 18 months?
So if you build it properly, so the answer to your question is, can you do it? The answer is yes. Of course, like everything else, the devil's in the details, right? So the process of sending an email to capture consent is fine. How do you actually implement it is the issue. If you implement it properly, where you're getting complete prior express written consent that's now compliant with the 1-to-1 rule, then that doesn't expire in 90 days or 18 months. It never expires until the consumer opts out or tells you, or you have some reason to believe that they no longer want to hear contact from you, right? If you can get them to engage with that email, go to, for instance, a landing page, fill out the beautiful Troutman Amine 15 form that you're going to have right there, and they click on that and they want to hear from you, you're golden. You're great, right? And a lot of people are doing that right now. Some folks are even using SMS campaigns because today they have express written consent, right? So using SMS campaigns to communicate with their client base to try to get them to go to a lander to give them the new 1-to-1 consent. And they're using call to action just as you're suggesting, hey, look, if you want to keep hearing from us because of a change of the law, you've got to now provide this additional level of consent. Again, I leave to you how best to engage with your own audience, but it is something definitely worth considering.
That answers my questions. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Laura, I want to add a little bit to that. There is more way to communicate with your customer other than SMS and phone calls. And there are other channels that you may reach them to, you may use to reach out to them. So that may be a way for you to get obtain 1-to-1 consent as well. So do look into more omni-channel solutions as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. The next is Lane Steves.
Hey there, how are you?
Ian.
Yeah, it's Ian. That's okay.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Common mispronunciation. I would have been more impressed if you would have said Ian. We're more surprised, I should say. Thank you for taking the questions. Biggest question is just around existing lead inventory and the pipelines, all the leads that have been purchased pre-127, and essentially some angst around the compliance around contacting those consumers. So if they use a true manual solution, then all of that existing inventory is still viable. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, so yes is the answer. I got to put a little asterisk on that because, I mean, you guys know there's state laws you have to comply with that are different than the federal laws. And then the other asterisk is, and I don't think it's an issue, I really don't, but there are some state AGs and there are some plaintiffs' lawyers that are going to try to argue that even under the DNC rules, you have to have 1-to-1 consent, even though the FCC specifically did not modify the definition of prior express invitation or permission. They only modified the definition of prior express written consent. So to me, that's it's just a terrible argument. But there is some argument that even today's leads won't be valid if you're calling manually to numbers on the DNC. Again, my personal view is that's a baloney argument, but there is, I got to just raise that so that I say it out loud and cover you guys, just so you know it's there. But certainly, if you're calling a number that's not on the DNC, you can call.
That's what I'm going to ask.
And if you're calling manually, in my opinion, even numbers on the DNC, if the consent is compliant today, you can continue to call manually even to numbers on the DNC post January 27th. But you can't call using regulated technology.
Awesome. I think
You don't have to.
Okay. Next is Dason.
Dason. Hi, how you doing, everybody? Just questions about re-engagement primarily. It sounds to me like ringless voicemail is completely out of the question going forward. But as far as being able to re-engage the existing data that we have, are we able to use text messaging with sending them a link to a landing page? That's as long as we have that one-to-one consent on the records we're sending the messages out on. And then
Yeah, so
go ahead.
well, if you've got one-to-one consent, obviously you can communicate howsoever the form tells you can communicate, right? So if it says you can send me texts and pre-recorded calls and hugs, then you can. But the issue is if you've got a consent today, you might want to use text message to re-engage today while you still can, to get them to go to a lander to give you one-to-one consent so you can continue to text after January 27th. Now, just like with phone calls, text and phone calls are treated the same. So if you are manually texting, you can continue to manually text even after January 27th. But if you're using technology that qualifies as an ATDS to send those text messages, then you cannot send those texts to your existing leads after January 27th. I think that's your first question.
Yep. And then just to clarify the manual dialing, is that literal finger to keypad dialing, or would that fall under the category of, say, preview dial in a dialer where the lead pops up and then they actually initiate the dial button, or do they actually need to dial the numbers physically for every call they make?
Yeah, so unfortunately, manual dialing doesn't actually look at the level of human intervention necessary to send messages anymore. It used to a few years ago, but then the law changed with the U.S. Supreme Court decision. So today, it's unfortunately, it's very opaque and very challenging to apply, because what matters is not how the human being is engaging with the system. What matters is what the capacity of the system is to use a randomizer or a number generator to sequence or store phone numbers to be dialed, which really kind of comes down to what is the latent capacity of a dialing system to tie break or to do load balancing using some of these functionalities that the courts look at. So unfortunately, there's no clear answer to that question without kind of really understanding your code base and how your platform actually operates, even if you're not using the functionalities, like what it has the ability to do, which is why I was saying most of my clients are trying to now either do something proprietary, build out their own solution so they can do it at scale and they know they've got all the code, this problem stripped out, or they're using something like a Safe Select or a DRIPS Initiate product, which is products that are purpose built to not have these kind of errant codes in them. But if you've got questions, you can shoot me an email. I can try to help guide you through it to find a platform that might work for you. But typically speaking, unless these are like really built to be TCPA compliant, any of these solutions, even the preview dial, these are going to be probably an ATDS. So that's the bad news.
Just to add a little bit to that, we have like 6 days before 127. So when you get consent, make sure to cover all the potential technology that you might use. So just in case you need to, you need those technology to contact them in the future. I changed the slides I changed to a slide where we list all the regulated technologies. All of these need to be explicitly mentioned in the consent message. And I just want to point that out. I thought that was a very important takeaway when I was doing research. Yeah. And
there's and just to be 100% clear on this, ringless voicemails, that's something we cannot do no matter what, right? That's going to be illegal no matter what, or is there a way to opt into those?
No, if you have a consent form that says ringless voicemail or pre-recorded calls or pre-recorded voicemails, yeah. No, okay. So understand, ringless voicemail is regulated technology just like all the other regulated technologies. It's no worse, but no better. So, people think that ringless voicemail is somehow not covered by the TCPA. I'm just like, that's crazy. So you can use ringless voicemail as a tool, as a touch point for consumers who have provided that level of consent. And if they provided one-to-one, right, then even after January 27th, you can use ringless voicemail.
And so just to be clear, so if they opt in for that opt-in is good on a one-to-one, it's good for until they opt out, or does that
Correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Next is Wade.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Eric, for your time. Just a quick question. You might have already covered this. I just want to ask one more time. All of our leads have always been opted in like pay-per-click one-to-one. I'm assuming an old lead that was not from a lead aggregator is considered one-to-one, correct?
An old lead that complies with one-to-one is still going to be valid even after January 27th, but it has to comply with one-to-one. And I obviously can't tell you you know, based upon a hypothetical if your lead is going to be compliant or not. But if you look at the Troutman Mean 15 and you look at your lead, and if it checks all those boxes, then just because it came before January 27th does not make it invalid.
And do we have to scrub the do not call list if they have opted in and have not revoked consent?
You do not. If they've given you the correct one-to-one consent, you do not have to scrub the DNC list. You can contact them.
Is there any law there that says we have to put our opt-out on every single text message, or is there any rule? What is the rule on reminder of the opt-out?
Yeah, because text messages are not treated as pre-recorded calls, the content requirements of 227D and the CFR do not apply to text messages the way they would to pre-recorded calls. That means you do not technically have to include a DNC notification in your text messages. However, CTIA and the carriers and the aggregators are going to require you to have that opt-out notification under their rules.
On every message or just the first one? Or you don't?
That will be the requirement that they will try to impose. If you're having a conversational back and forth communication with the consumer, you know, my position, and we've argued this before the CTIA and others in the past, is that, hey, look, you just need that first notification. Otherwise, it's not very conversational. But, you know, different aggregators and, you know, with whom you might have a contract might have different viewpoints on that. But that's not legally mandated. That's just something that the carriers impose.
Gotcha. For delivery. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep. You're welcome.
I do have a question, and I'm using my host priority to cut it to. If someone add themselves to DNC after they express one-to-one consent, then which one can we still contact them?
Yeah, you know, I get that question from time to time. Again, not your lawyers, speak to a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. But my take, and it's actually not been answered in the case law, which is actually kind of fascinating. Actually, there is actually one case at a district court level that answers it. But my take is that is not a revocation of consent. A revocation has to be expressed directly to the caller. It cannot just be an action such as now putting myself on the DNC list. So if you're on the DNC list, that will prevent unsolicited calls. However, it does not move out or take away the express written consent that was there previously. And again, there is one case that says that, but there's very little case law on that, believe it or not. It's kind of interesting to me. All right, I've got to drop here in about 1 minute, so I'm going to take one more question. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, we have Ian Foltz.
All right, Ian.
From one Ian to another. Eric, it was a pleasure meeting some of your guys at LGW, by the way. Really appreciate that. So I wanted to follow up on what the other Ian was asking. It's kind of a twofold question. So if the dialing system has ATDS capability, even though it's not being used, that would be a violation of the one-to-one, correct?
Everywhere outside of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals footprint, so in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey, you are fine to use that technology as long as you're not actually using that functionality. Outside of that footprint, then it would be a violation of the law. Isn't that crazy?
Well, yeah, we are Pennsylvania, so that's that makes no sense. But yeah, okay, I appreciate that. And the second part of that question is then to avoid the potential ATDS capability, could you use like a Ring Central or something like that, where you can copy it out of your CRM, paste it into a dialer using it, or does it, to Ian's question, does it have to be fingertips on the keypad?
It doesn't have to be fingertips on the keypad. There are solutions that you can leverage and dial at scale with a list. However, you know, Ring Central, as an example, is not one that I've vetted, and I would suspect that system is going to have the functionalities from a tie-breaking perspective or from a sequencing perspective, and maybe even from like a shuffling perspective, that would constitute an ATDS. So again, it's the functionalities of the system that you need to be focused on, not, you know, how am I dialing these from a fingers on the keypad. That is actually irrelevant. Okay. Yeah, I know it's weird because to a normal person, you're like, well, that's what determines if it's manual or not. But from a legal perspective, oddly enough, it doesn't matter at all.
And that was the Third Circuit of what in Pennsylvania?
The Third Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal Third Circuit Court of Appeals, is the only one, the case called Panzarella, where the Third Circuit Court of Appeals said, you know what, if you're not using the functionalities that are set forth in the statute, then we're going to find that you're not using an ATDS. Every other circuit looks at the capacity of the system because that's how the statute is actually written.
Perfect. Thank you. Give my best to Pooja, by the way. Thank you.
I will do so. All right. Love you all. Amy, you were great. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.